Hi, boys and girls. Welcome back to Storytime with Miss Felicia. I'm Miss Felicia, and I am so happy to have you back for another Storytime episode. This week, we're going to be reading a book about senior citizens and a friendship that a little boy has with his senior citizen neighbor. Do you guys know what a senior citizen is? Can you guys just guess? Do you have anybody in your family that might be a senior citizen? You do. You might have a grandma or a grandpa or an aunt or uncle or even a cousin that's over the age of 65. Now, don't go asking their age, but you might have somebody that will tell you, yes, I'm 70 years old, and that's a senior citizen. They usually are retired and don't work anymore and get to spend time with you, or they live in a senior citizen community with other people that are older too, and they get to do activities during the day, stuff like that. Well, our story is about two friends. One is a senior citizen and one is a little boy, and they both are learning at the same time because sometimes older people didn't get a chance to learn certain things when they were younger, and they decide to do it when they have more free time and they don't work anymore. So let's dive into our story. Our story is Mr. George Baker. Mr. George Baker by Amy Hest. See this man? This one here sitting on the porch? That's Mr. George Baker, and he's 100 years old. No kidding. So he's 100 years old. Who can count to 100? Can you? You can? Yeah, that's a high number. And this is his friend. Let's find out who his friend is. So you see Mr. George? Mr. George is over there. He's sitting on the porch and he's waiting for his little friend. Hurry up, Harry. Mr. Harry in charge. That's George, all snappy and happy in the morning. He's always calling, hurry up, Harry, when I'm crossing lawns, his and mine, and he's always there first, waiting on the porch. So, his friend's name is Harry. See Mr. George? Doesn't he look super happy? He's waiting for his friend, Harry. George and Harry. See his pants all baggy, baggy, baggy? What holds them up? Suspenders. Who knows what suspenders are? Suspenders are bungee straps that have clips at the end, and they look really stylish. Older gentlemen usually wear them. Brown baggy pants with 2 side pockets and 2 in the back. There's candy in those pockets. Little chocolate candies in twisty silver wrappers. George pops one in his mouth, and I do too. We wait on the porch and chew. So they have a candy while they're waiting on the porch. What are they waiting for, though? Who knows? We'll find out. I like his crumpled hat and his long, stretchy legs. His shoes are crumpled, too, with long shoelaces. Mine always come undone in the morning. Let's have a look, says George, making 2 double knots that never come undone, not ever. See this man, this one right here, zipping up his book bag? His book bag is red like mine, and there's a book inside. But George can't read. 100 years old, and he never learned how. That must be corrected, says George. So George never learned how to read. He's 100 years old, but he doesn't know how to read yet. And how is he going to correct that? How would you guys correct it? How can you fix the problem of him not knowing how to read? What do? Do you teach him? Maybe. I really like his sweater, all hanging with 3 buttons. It's chilly in the morning, and we both hug our knees and wait. We wait watching leaves blow off trees. They fly for a while, they float. They tumble for a while, they swoop. So they're sitting there and they're waiting. They're still waiting. Now the screen door creaks, and you know who teeters out? Mrs. Baker. And some people say she's 90. Well, here you are, Harry, looking after my George. Mrs. Baker puts a sack on the step beside George, and there's lunch in the sack for later. For the man I love, says Mrs. Baker. Aw, isn't that sweet? She makes him a lunch in his sack and gives him a kiss on his head. Why, Mrs. B, you flatter me. George gets up all crookedy and slow, and the next thing you know, they're dancing. Then Mrs. Baker gives a wave and a wink. Goodbye, she says. Be good, she says, and goes back in the house with the purple shutters. Look at those two dancing. At 190 years old, they're dancing away. George Baker and I, we sit on the step and wait. Side by side, we wait. See these crookedy fingers going tappity on his knees? They fly across his knees. Tappity boom, tappity boom, tappity boom boom tap. George Baker is a drummer man, and some people say he's famous. Sometimes he drums on his porch at night, and the neighbors come by, up the road and down the road. They come to hear my drummer man. So Mr. Baker, Mr. George Baker, is a drummer. So he knows how to drum real well and make music. Shh, listen. George gets up real slow. I take his hand and he takes mine, and we shuffle down the walk to the big school bus. Morning, says the driver. We've been waiting, answers George. There are 22 kids on the bus, plus 4 grown-ups on the bus. They all want George. Over here, they cry. Sit here, they say. But George sits with me each and every day. Because they're friends, right? They're best friends. Do you have a best friend that you sit with on your school bus? You do? Yeah. It's really nice to have a friend to sit with on the school bus. You can ride with them and talk to them, and they keep you company as you get on your way to school. See this man? This one in room 7? That's Mr. George Baker, and he's 100 years old. No kidding. He's learning to read with the grown-ups in room 7, and my room is right down the hall. I'm learning too, and it's hard. Sometimes learning is hard. But look, Mr. George, at 100 years old, is still trying to learn. So he's not giving up. So even though sometimes it's hard, we can't give up. We have to keep on going, because we can learn new stuff at any age. We can do it, says George after school. Our books are green, and his lips sound out the letters real slow. But his fingers fly across his knees like a big old drum. Tappity boom, tappity boom, tappity boom, boom, tap. The end. Mr. George Baker. Wasn't that an awesome story? I really liked how Mr. George and his friend Harry, they sit next to each other on the porch each morning, and they wait together, and they ride the bus together, and they're both learning together. So even though Harry is really young and Mr. George is very old, they're still doing things together, and they're enjoying their friendship. They're learning at the same time, because no matter how old you are, you can learn. And no matter how young you are, you can learn too. So, I'm really happy that you guys joined me for this week's story time. And parents, don't forget, please subscribe to our YouTube page. We love to have you as a subscriber so that you can get first-time notifications and updates whenever we put up a new video, so that your kids and your family can enjoy our wonderful Storytime episodes. Until next week, bye friends!